everybody, this is Pretty from Itsapreetiworld. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm using the stamp set from Simon Says Stamp's new release called So Beautiful, and the release is called Crafty Hugs, and that's for June 2020. I'm using the stamp to make 5 different cards, so it's basically one stamp, 5 cards. And because it's a rubber stamp, I have gone ahead and removed that black mat from my MISTI, because you don't really need that when you're using a rubber stamp. And I'm starting off with this white cardstock, which is a Neenah Solar White 110-pound white cardstock. And the reason I'm using this is because I want to use Copic colors on it, as well as I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink to stamp this image onto this white cardstock. And what I did is I took this stamp image once again, not the image, the rubber stamp itself, and I placed it exactly where I had stamped the image, and then all I did is I traced around it using a pencil. And the reason for this is because I want to make this into a shape card. Now this image, or the stamp is quite a whimsical stamp, so I really wanted the shape to be quite whimsical as well, and it's easier to fussy cut that as well. So I just fussy cut it around where I traced along the pencil. I don't think there is a die yet for this stamp set, and I'm hoping that they would come up with a die quickly. That would be wonderful. Anyway, so I've gone ahead and fussy cut that, and I'm going to color this using my Copic colors, and I've already gone ahead and colored it. I did not show the coloring because this image did take me quite a bit to color, but if you're interested, I do have a coloring a coloring video on my channel, as well as how I colored this. So I've gone ahead and taken 2 more pieces, cardstocks, and I'm going to trace this image once more on those 2 white cardstock as well. Those cardstocks are cut into 5.5 by 4.25 each. And then once I'm done tracing these this image once again, I'm just going to fussy cut them once more. So then at the end I will have one of the colored panel and 2 white panels right there, so that I can put them together to make a card. Before that, I'm going to take this small piece of paper, which I've cut about 1/2 inch, maybe a little less than 1/2 inch, and I'm going to score that right in the center, and this is going to create the hinge that I need to make my shaped card. So I'm just scoring that right in the center. Obviously I don't want it, I wouldn't need the length of it, but that I'll cut it later on. I'll show you. I'm just going to score it in the middle, and I'm going to make sure that I crease it really well with my bone folder. And I'm going to use this hinge right behind the paper, this cardstock. One of the panels that I have cut is to actually adhere directly behind this colored panel, so it covers up all that seepage of the colors that you can see behind it. My glue ran out. Anyway, so I'm using this is, I think, the Connect glue from Gina K. So I'm just using that to adhere this colored panel behind it, so that way it covers up all the color that has seeped through it. So you can see there's 2 large flowers there. That is a large, it's kind of the center of the card as well, center of the panel as well. So I'm going to just place that hinge there, and you can see I just need a little bit. I kind of eyeballed it, and I'm just going to cut it off, cut the extra off, and I'm going to just adhere one side of the hinge to the back of this colored panel. And you can see that I've used one of those plain colored panels, plain shaped panels to cover up the colored one. I hope I'm making sense there, I'm not confusing you. Anyway, so I'm just taking the second one that we had, which I had cut earlier, and I'm going to place that on top of the other part, on the other side of the hinge. So I'm going to add glue onto the open side of the hinge, and I'm going to adhere this on top of that, and that will make it like a shaped card. I hope that makes sense. What I've also gone ahead and taken this stamp, which is also part of the same stamp set, and it says "You Are So Beautiful," and I have stamped and embossed it onto a black cardstock using white embossing powder, and I fussy cut that using my detail scissors as well. And I'm going to adhere that using some foam tape right at the bottom of this shaped card. And in a minute you will see, not in a minute, in a few seconds you will see how this card opens once I'm done adding some sequins. I'm just adding a few I don't think these are clear sequins, I think they're called iridescent sequins maybe. So I'm just adding them a few scattering here and there, and then now you see, here you go, that's the way the card opens. And that pretty much completed that card, and here's the look of the first card. Now for the second card, I've done the same thing. I've already gone ahead and stamped and colored this image exactly the same way I colored the previous one. And I've taken, well, I'm showing you three, actually you just need two 11 by 4 1/4 piece cardstock. And the first one, I'm going to score it in the center, that's at 5 1/2, which will give you the normal card size, the normal A4 card base. And for the second one, I'm going to cut this at 6 inches, so and 1/2 inch more than a 5 1/2 cardstock. So I'm just cutting it at 6 inches, and then I'm going to score 1/2 inch, that extra 1/2 inch on the 6 inch side. So on the 6 inch side, I'm going to score that 1/2 inch. So when I score that 1/2 inch, now it'll give me a 5 1/4 inside. So when you score it, it'll still be a 5 1/4 by 4, 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 inch cardstock. I hope I'm making sense. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to create this into a tri-fold card. So I'm taking the first scored one and I'm just scoring it as usual. So that's just a regular A4 card. And then the scored one will adhere right inside, like the inside part of the open card, just like that. So then what happens is you'll have a tri-fold card. I'm not going to adhere it right now because I need to do a few more things on this. So now I've gone ahead and made a template for myself. So I've just stamped that image onto a regular, just a normal paper with some fog ink. And then I've also gone ahead and die cut a circle. And the circle I die cut making sure it's just, I cut just that cone flower place and the daisy place. So I'm using this as a template onto my card base, and I'm going to use this die. This is a Simon Says Stamp stitched circle die. It's one of the smaller dies from that set, and I'm just going to place it in that area where the circle is, and I'm going to open the card and I'm going to run it through the die cut machine. And there you can see when you open it, I have a circle cut. So then when I put that piece inside, you can see those flowers peeking through the hole. But we have a couple more steps to do, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this inside panel that we created using that score line, and I'm going to add a sentiment inside onto this, into this the inside panel. So I'm just making sure that it is, it was not closing properly, so I just took like a sliver off of the non-scored side, so that made it easier to sorry, when I adhere it, eventually when I adhere it, it will be easier to close it without any buckling or popping up or anything like that. So I'm just taking this sentiment, and this sentiment is from All the Thanks stamp set, and it's called All the Thanks. And I'm going to stamp this inside that panel, like the extra small panel, that the scored panel, and I'm going to use this mint candy stamp from Simon Says, ink pad from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to stamp it at the bottom of this panel, the scored panel. Now it's time to adhere. Actually, did I adhere it? No, before that I also wanted to create another die cut panel on the outside, the front panel of the cardstock. I'm showing you this die cut, but actually I used a little larger die cut, and that is from the nesting banner die set from Simon Says Stamp. So I've gone ahead and die cut that also on the top panel. So now you can see that All the Thanks a little peeking through the die cut that we just did on the top panel. And then I've also stamped and embossed the additional stamp, which reads, "You have been no, it said, for all you have done." And then I'm going to adhere this scored panel inside, and then I'm going to just crease it once more. And once I'm done with that, I need to create this circle die once more in the inside panel as well. So I'm just marking with my pencil, and I'm going to place my die cut, open the card panel completely. You want to make sure that you don't cut through it, but you want to just cut only on this inside panel, inside flap. And I'm going to place that die once more, and I'm going to die cut that. And now you can see, just erasing the extra pencil line that I had all around it. Now you can see that you have a circle that goes all the way through to the inside. And then I'm going to adhere this colored panel directly onto the base, like the inside, when you open both the folds, both the panels, the inside part of it, with just some liquid glue. And then I also colored and fussy cut the cone flowers and the daisy. There you go. And then I'm going to adhere this, pop it with some foam tape, just the ones that is visible through that circle die. So I'm just going to pop that right in the center. And then also that sentiment that I had talked about earlier, which said, for all you have done, I'm going to add some foam adhesive behind it as well. And I'm going to pop that right on top of the word that we stamped, all the thanks word, that we stamped earlier. And so there you go, and here's the finished look. So that's how it kind of opens. And then once it was all done, I just added a few sequins to the card front, and that pretty much finished that card. And here's the look of that card. This was probably my favorite card of all. Anyway, moving on to the third card. For the third card, I'm using a craft cardstock, not a cardstock, a craft note card, which I'm using the side folding size of the card. And I'm going to stamp this. By the way, the one that ruler kind of thing that I'm using is a stamp positioner for Stamp-O-Magic, and it's really not Stamp-O-Magic, sorry, for MISTI, and it's really helpful sometimes to place stamps. Anyway, so I'm just stamping it using some black pigment ink, and then I've already gone ahead and colored this image once more. Just die cut just a small part of that, the same circle die that I used for the previous card as well. I used that same one, and I just die cut just that area of that image, and I colored it using my Copic markers. And then I'm just adhering that part onto the respective place using some foam tape. And this sentiment, thank you, is from the Greeting Mix 1 stamp set, which I've also stamped and embossed using white embossing ink, white embossing powder onto a black cardstock, and I'm just adhering it on the top right of the cardstock. Then I just added some some sequins, the same sequence for all of them actually, and here is the look for that finished look of that card. It's simple and easy, but it really had a lot of oomph to it. For my next card, I've gone ahead and again stamped and colored it, and now this time I'm going to fussy cut it again, just the top edge, but I'm going to fussy cut it closer to the flowers, unlike the shaped card, not the way I cut for the shaped card, but a little differently. So I'm just cutting it actually very close to the edge of the top flowers and leaf of this image, and there you go, you can see how that looks. And then I've taken this another side folding white note card and this gingham black pattern paper, and I'm going to just cut this pattern paper right in the center because I just need half of that pattern paper, and I'm going to add it to the open edge of the note card. So in a bit I'm going to just add some liquid glue, and I'm going to add it to the open edge. You can see that, the open edge of the cardstock. And then I'm going to place, just cutting off the excess. And then I'm going to take that fussy cut panel, the colored panel, and I'm going to add some foam adhesive to the back of it. And I'm going to adhere it to the bottom of this. So it's actually not a landscape, but it's going to be a portrait card. So this image is going to be sideways and not bottom up. And then this sentiment is from a strip, from a sheet of sentiments with Simon Says Stamp Cells. It is a pre-printed sentiment panel, and I'm just using I really miss your face sentiment for this particular card. And I think this was another card that I really liked. I like that gingham pattern. I think it complements, though it looks busy, but I think it really complements the image itself. And here's the finished look for that card. Moving on to I think this is the last card, is it? Yeah, moving on to a final card here. I am starting off with another white cardstock, and I'm going to stamp this image onto this white cardstock using a pigment black ink, and that's a reason. And I'm going to emboss it using clear embossing powder, and that's the reason why I used the embossing buddy earlier. And I'm just using fine detail clear embossing powder from SSS stamp. And I'm just going to heat set that using my heat gun. And once I'm done heat setting it, I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending, and I'm just using one ink Distress Oxide Festive Berries ink, and I'm going to use a scrap paper on the side to just remove the excess off, and I'm going to lightly start ink blending it from the top. I'm using a very light hand, and I'm just building it over and over and over it. I'm not pressing my blending brush hard because I don't want any splotches, so I just wanted to have a smooth blend, so I just kept blending over and over again. And I went about a third of the cardstock, and I left most of the cardstock pretty white, so the bottom half of the cardstock is quite white, so I just blended just the top part of it. And then I'm taking this white spray, and I'm just going to add some splatter. You can also use white acrylic paint or gouache or whatever paint you have. And then I'm also using this gold metallic paint, and I'm going to splatter that just to the top half of the panel. So I'm just taking a scrap paper, and I'm just covering the bottom half so I don't get the paint at the bottom, and I'm just going to splatter that on the top and just heat setting it so I don't get any smudges anywhere. And once I was all done with that, I took another strip. This is another one of those pre-printed sentiment strips. I don't know if you can see it, but it says, just a note to say I'm thinking of you. And I'm using the same Distress Oxide ink, but a little heavy hand this time. And I'm going to just smoothly blend that color across it. And I'm going to use foam adhesive once more. And I'm going to adhere that sentiment strip to the bottom half of this panel. And then I'm going to cut this panel down. I think I cut it down to about 3.5 by maybe 5 inches tall, and then I took that other half of the gingham pattern paper that I had left over, and I'm going to adhere this to the scored side of my cardstock, of my side folding cardstock, and I'm going to again cut the excess off, and then I'm just going to adhere that colored ink blended panel using some foam adhesive on top of this gingham panel, and that pretty much finished this card. And then I added a few sequins, and that's pretty much it, and you will see the finished look soon. I just wanted to let you know that this cards that I've created is also for the day 2 blog hop of this release called the Crafty Hugs release, and you can see all the details of that release on my blog post, and the link is at the bottom in the description box below. And here are the look of all the 5 cards that I created today. I hope you liked this video. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment. I always love to hear what you say. You have a wonderful day. Bye bye.